I consider myself someone with a pretty strong stomach. I like my gore movies, I like my bleak dramas, I like my depressing books, and this was the first time I had to put down a book. Now, of course, I finished it, but I Who Have Never Known Men touched me in a way that other books haven't. I think the greatest honor that I can bestow upon a book is to say that it made me feel, whether that's love or frustration or honestly even annoyance. That is what makes reading the pastime that I love. And this one imbued me with a sense of joy and grief in a way that I'm never sure I've experienced with a book before. Reviewing this book, and I feel like a broken record now, is something that's filled me with a lot of conflicting emotions in a way that has only happened with a few books before. When I read this book, I wanted to tell everyone about it. I wanted to tell my family and my friends, and I have, and now I'm telling you guys about it. But at the same time, it's written with such elegance that, I just do not want to fuck it up. I feel like anytime I talk about it, it's doing it an embarrassing injustice just based on how beautiful the book is. But who else on the internet is up to the task of writing an extremely mediocre review about this book? 42,000? Okay, I'll still go for it. The main character has lived in a cage along with 39 other women for her entire life. They're kept well fed, and when they're sick, they're given medicine, but they live an utterly monotonous life. They have no belongings. They can't touch each other. They have no understanding of the outside world's time, date, anything about the world. Everything they do is within the view of the guards, which is this rotating group of silent men who use whips to enforce complete compliance. All of the women have this vague recollection of the world before this, quote, disaster struck, but their memories are foggy and they've got no idea what caused them to be placed there. That is, except the main character and narrator, who is just 14 years old and at least 20 years younger than all of the other women in the bunker, if not more. She knows absolutely nothing about her life before she was placed in this bunker. She's writing this book in the future about her entire life, which was a strange existence that did not bring her much joy. They live in this bunker for years, doing the exact same thing, day after day, unsure of their purpose, until one day, a deafening alarm sounds. The guards rush out, and the cage door is actually unlocked. They run up the stairs, they thrust open the door, and they see an endless prairie for as long as the eye can see. From this initial hour or so of reading, I was hooked, and I never ever looked back. The mystery of Harpman's story is captivating, and it's written so quickly. There aren't many moments to just dwell and think. And while I think the excellence of this book is in its critique of life, the actual pace of the mystery and the story is, in and of itself, absolutely engrossing. The story gives me vibes of like the early seasons of Lost. You know how in one of the scenes of Ratatouille, the reviewer gets fed the ratatouille and then he gets this complete flashback to some early part in his childhood? That was exactly what I felt reading this book, and it reminded me of The City of Ember, which I read when I was probably like 11, in the sense that every lick of information that I was fed in this book, I absolutely ate it up. This book is an absolute jewel and something that I will be thinking about for a long time. Not because of its mystery, but because of the book's message about the meaning of life. Something that I'd imagine would cut pretty deep for anyone who takes a couple of hours to read this book. This is the best book that I've read this year, hands down, no question about it, and probably the best book that I've read in much longer. And I tried my best, I tried very hard to do the best review that I could to give it justice. However, I don't think that I can do these themes justice without getting into some spoilers, so please take my word, this book is a work of art, and give it a read, and then come back when you're done with it. All right, so what happens when they leave the bunker? So they go and they start walking. On the 27th day, they finally find something. They find a cabin exactly like the one that they escaped from. They go down into it, and they see 40 women, all dead. After dealing with the trauma of this, they eventually decide to move on. The next thing they come up to is another cabin, and when they go down to see what's inside of it, they find 40 bodies again. This time, all men. They go on for months and months just seeing mass grave after mass grave. And it's 2 years before they decide to stop, settling down and constructing a humble village. Death has reached the group members, and one by one, they slowly start to die off as the seasons go by. The women die off one by one, and it leads to, I think, the most emotional and saddest part of the book for me, which is when it's just Laura and the main character left. Laura is not someone who necessarily really likes the main character, and they don't have a great relationship. They don't hate each other, but they're not really friends. So all that's left is Laura slowly dying with the main character. Laura is on this earth, an earth that seems to not even really want her, with a woman that she doesn't even necessarily like. She slowly dies. When the last of the women die off, the main character is left on this world alone. Given that she is a few decades younger than the next youngest woman, she's got some time left. And she decides that she's going to once again go out and venture and try to find some stuff and see what's in this world. On top of the typical bunkers and prairie, she ends up finding a bus filled with dead guards, which have all become skeletons at this point. And finally, she makes the last discovery of her life, which is a quaint underground home filled with carpet, an armchair, running water, books, and a variety of other equipment, food, and other necessities. It's where she lives out the final 22 years of her life before, at about age 62, she succumbs to cancer. Before I get to a few of the more core themes of the book, I want to touch on a bit of the side themes as well. This is insane! Oh shit. It's so windy out. I think that the falling back into religion during times of immense stress was very reflective of real life, as well as actually my own personal experience. In the book, they sort of default to religion in times of great struggle. They sing Christian hymns. They draw Christian fish cross things at the entrance of each cabin. And they repeat, quote, "From the depths I call on you, O Lord," during funerals. None of the women even have a good understanding of Christianity or even religion in general. But religion gives them some serenity and, importantly, a sense of togetherness, and, importantly, connection to a higher power or purpose, which is something that has been completely lacking from their post-disaster lives. While I'm not a very religious person, geez, this is crazy. There are tornado warnings right now. I find that this paralleled some of my own life experiences as well. I myself am not a very religious person, but at some of my most vulnerable points in my life, I've found that I've desperately reached out to any God, searching for some hope and some help. Next, I want to talk about something that I guarantee every single person watching can relate to, and that is death. Specifically, the importance that the narrator and the community puts on a dignified end to the characters. The narrator and many of the other characters take great meaning from the ends of lives, which can be seen through a variety of examples in the book. They make cemeteries for the deceased, and the narrator even begins giving the women a dignified end, offering them the relatively painless way of ceremoniously stabbing them through the heart, which was honestly wild to read. Opposite deaths are referred to and highlighted multiple times throughout the book. The narrator talks about one man very highly, one that she finds stoically sitting upon his death, appreciating the man's calmness as opposed to the mangled corpses who died in the chaos in many of the bunkers. The first two deaths probably highlighted this the best, though. Dorothy, she dies holding the hand of someone she cares about and who cares about her, and she slowly drifts away as the group moves forward. Mary Jane, on the other hand, overcome with pain, she sneaks away in the dark and hangs herself, completely alone. What was the point and what was the importance of all this focus on death? Well, in my view, their trek through the fields was ultimately a traditionally meaningless life and march to their own death. The death itself was something that they could actually control. With such traditionally meaningless lives, their deaths feel extra tragic to them and to readers. And this is their way to rebel against this situation that they've been unfairly forced into. They rebel by making the choice to die with dignity. This obsession with death is perhaps so important because it marks the end of what I found to be the most important theme of the book, which is Harpman's commentary on life's meaning. To me, the thesis of the book was this: life is cruelly meaningless. We don't get answers, God doesn't promise happiness or satisfaction, and how we cope with this ultimately defines our existence. The women will never learn what the point of their confusing lives were, and neither will we as readers. Our narrator spends a large chunk of this book denying that fact. She white-knuckles her way through everything, through her life, desperate for answers, and it's all-consuming to the point that even upon exiting the bunker, she notes that she just moved into a new prison. I was so excited to figure out finally in this book why they were locked up so long, and are they on Earth, and the answer to all these mysteries. I said earlier in this review that I absolutely ate up every morsel of information about the world that Harpman created, which is why it hit so hard when I discovered that the purpose was that it all led to nothing. Especially near the beginning of their venture, the women find themselves still locked in this unwinnable battle for freedom. They wanted something all their lives, and now that they have it, escaping the prison, they don't recognize it. When you're a kid, you always dream about what you want to be when you grow up. People ask you and you say, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a movie star, I want to be an author. And for me, this was, I wanted to be a baseball player. Now, I am not a professional baseball player, but as we grow up, we notice that these things are probably unachievable, and even if we do achieve them, sometimes the satisfaction does not come. Life is not a video game that has some distinct, discrete conclusion or storyline programmed to play out. It's a confusing, disappointing, and ultimately frustrating marathon. And it's easy to think that this is just like a depression porn book, but Harpman does not leave us without hope. We are given plenty of examples of ways characters find meaning in a traditionally meaningless existence. On top of day-to-day tasks like chores and games and woodworking, the women do find joy in their memories. They speak about the fondness of little things like kissing a crush or eating chocolate. This simple appreciation for life is emphasized with our main character, who has no prior knowledge of these things. She finds beauty in the most mundane of activities and the most mundane of things. She smells soap for the first time. She tries new food, and she takes a warm bath. But importantly, just because she finds joy through simple things doesn't mean that that joy can't be overwhelmingly powerful. She also discovers love. She forms a strong bond with Anthea, and she also develops a love for herself. At the end of the book, she describes looking at herself in the mirror for the first time. There are blemishes on her face, but she has such a thorough love for her body because it's her. Are simple experiences like this enough to make life a positive experience? I don't know. And that's a conversation that every reader has to have with themselves. This is the saddest, most melancholy book that I've ever read. But it's not sad for the sake of being sad. It's also the happiest book. It's hopeful, and I found it powerful that the sadness was not just for the sake of being sad, it was for the sake of emphasizing the happiness of certain things. Ironically, the emptiness and the disappointment of the journey in this book are the meaning in and of itself. Life doesn't always have easy, obvious meanings to things. It's not some YA book with an obvious message at the end. Sometimes we just take what we can. Harpman takes the reader's own desire for meaning and conclusion in books and flips this on its head to capitalize her message on the meaning, or rather the meaninglessness, of life. I have understood nothing about the world in which I live. I have crisscrossed it in every direction, but I haven't discovered its boundaries. I hope you all can find some peace and closure on your personal journey to nowhere. Thanks for watching.